This video is dedicated to James Humphreys. James, thank you. Hello all, Editor Kai here, just putting in a disclaimer at the beginning of this video. There is a mistake that is made here, and I know it will upset some of you because you're upset by such things, so you get your warning here. If you don't like such things, then you can click away now. Ajani Nacatl Pariah versus Torbran, Ulalek and Satya. Been struggling to get content with Ulalek myself, but I've been specifically asking for power level 6 casual today, so I've got half a chance of actually seeing some content from that commander. We've got a lack of coloured mana there, so we have to mulligan. Alright, that's looking okay. The beauty of having a commander that's only 2 mana is that you can afford to keep slightly more expensive hands. And we've got a means of sacrificing our token from Ajani to High Market or Ashnod's Altar as well, so we can probably get a turn 2 Ajani Planeswalker, although it's likely to get burned out pretty quickly by Torbran. Alright, and draw into Cathar's Crusade, so we'll just get down the tap land in and pass. Alright, seems as though the Eldrazi player has just passed straight through the turn. And Electrostatic Field is the first spell. Comes from Torbran, and there's a Sol Ring is great as well, so if we'd got into that on turn 1 we could have had a Planeswalker now. But let's go for, just in case we see a wheel, isn't likely, but just in case we'll go for the High Market here. Into Sol Ring, into our commander, and that enters with a cat token which we will soon be sacrificing. Good that we can Skull Clamp this as well, that makes a difference. Talisman of Conviction from Terrax, Fiery Inscription from the Burn player. Does Ulalek hold up counter magic is the question. We've got another X spell, I think there's 4 in the deck, more than I'd usually run. 4th Aeolingus, so drop a land, and maybe we can introduce the Monarch while there's no creatures in play to worry about grabbing it back from us. So we'll go X's 2 on the X spell we just drew into, and then we can transform the Ajani at instant speed, but we might as well spread some damage around here, so 3 into the left and 2 down the middle. So we introduce the Monarchy into the game after we hit with that. And let's crack this cat token now in order to gain a life and transform our Ajani. And we do control red permanents thanks to that X spell, so go for the 0 ability, get a 2/1 down, and we can Lightning Bolt the Torbran, spread the love. Draw a card to the Monarch at the end of the turn. Gets us closer to a land for turn 4, and there it is. So going pretty perfectly at the moment, but obviously we haven't seen any interaction yet. There is the Satya, which I'm not in any particular rush to leave in play, although I forgot about the Menace on that, so yeah, does manage to go after the Ajani straight away. But thanks to our High Market we can just replay it easily enough. Just need to hope that we manage to keep hold of the Sol Ring really. Snapping Void Craw, taps for 2 mana. And Torbran hit in play, so we've got multiple targets to go after with our burn effects. But there's more fast mana for us, so what the hell do we do now? We want a Scalding Tarn in play. I think we want Ajani back in play for sure. So let's actually use some Mana Crypt mana for that. Get our Cat Warrior into play. And then I think we get Ashnod's Altar down here, so we can sacrifice a Cat Warrior token straight away. And I don't think we're going to make use of the mana. Could go Generous Gift onto something though. So yeah, I think Generous Gift onto this is fine. We'll 0 with the Ajani, and 4 damage can go onto Torbran because we control 4 creatures at the moment. Then let's go for a Plateau with the Scalding Tarn, and we can point Generous Gift at the commander over there. Want to keep as many creatures in play as we can for as long as possible really, because the more creatures we have, the more we can start pointing damage at our opponents with the Ajani. And also we can protect the Monarchy here as well, which is, yeah, gaining card advantage is difficult in Boros, so we want to keep that for as long as possible. And we are going to make another land next turn. That is a Surveil land. So ideally next turn we'll have Cathar's Crusade come down, and then we can maybe even convoke the Wildfire Awakener. That's playing straight into a board wipe, so it might not be the best idea. Maybe just Cathar's Crusade and make a token. Tragic Arrogance, going to choose from amongst permanents an artifact, creature, enchantment and planeswalker, and then sacrifice the rest. So not allowing us to keep our red creature, just keeping hold of a cat, and you'll assume that we keep hold of the mana crypt as well. So luckily, still have the sack outlet in the high market. Noteworthy that there is a, can't remember if it's a cave or a desert, but there is another version of high market now, and it can go in any coloured deck. Anyway, that at least frees us up for paying a bunch of mana for the Wildfire Awakener. We need to get another red permanent into play. Okay, so all this buying time for the Ulalek player. In my experience of playing this commander, Ulalek doesn't last very long, but we might be drawing hate. Sacrificing the Twisted Landscape to go and get a land. Dragon Fodder, making some tokens. So that will deal 2 damage to us from the Inscription, 1 from the Electrostatic Field. So it's a good job that we got rid of the Torbran, although it would have gone down to the Arrogance anyway. There's Field of the Dead for us. I think between the tap lands it's better to go for the Surveil land so that we can try and fix a draw for next turn. So our choices are either Cathar's Crusade and then get a couple of plus counters over a couple of creatures, or we can tap out into the Awakener, which I think is going to be the better shot here. So we might as well tap down the Cat Warrior because it's going to be replaced. We do get to keep these tokens. So X is 4 at the moment, and ideally we'd be able to get down Cathar's Crusade before this, but obviously this is a faster paced game and we're just having to use Ajani to control the board at the moment. So I think we have to deal with Ulalek, much as I'd like to be pointing this damage at my opponents. Yeah, that would be 5, 6, 7 damage at someone. But the 7 mana for Ulalek next turn, and I'm not risking it. Play the Elegant Parlour in order to look at the top card of our library. And that is a Rising of the Day. I think we need to get into some kind of card draw, so I'll throw that in the bin. Skull Clamp would be ideal. Alright, managed to draw into Esper Sentinel at the end of the turn with the Monarchy. Steam Core Scholar is Flying and Vigilance. Enters the battlefield, draw 2, then discard 2 unless you discard an instant or sorcery or creature with flying. Plenty of cards I've never seen before because I can't keep up with all these sets. And I've got a magic channel. Getting rid of a couple of lands and playing a land, so it looks as though Terrax is getting a little bit flooded, which is obviously good for us. Don't really want to crack the Martial Coup until we can preferably get Cathar's Crusade into play. I'm thinking it's Cathar's Crusade and Esper Sentinel next turn. Does mean that we might have to take 2 damage to our commander with the Steam Core Scholar. A Kozilek's Return. 2 damage to each creature, and Chaos Warp going on to, in response to that, the Goblin token. So we're going to try and get into something decent with that. 3 damage to each of us in response. So plenty of interaction in this one, and I've already shown you what we want to do in the deck, so this is one of those games where we're not particularly interested in who wins and loses. Not going to be able to deal with our commander though, unless the burn player's got something. Didn't manage to get anything with the Chaos Warp, so it might have been worth keeping hold of. Especially when there's the risk of Eldrazi coming down. Not swinging in the Eldrazi at the Ajani, so maybe wants to hold up 3 mana for some reason. Didn't even decide to try and take the Monarchy from us, which he could have done there. Alright, Den of the Bugbear being activated, which I didn't see previously. Not that I would have played around it anyway. But we're forcing our opponents to use mana to deal with the Ajani. So making a Goblin token when that swings in. And the Goblin token makes all the difference, comes into us and takes the Monarch. So I think a little bit of setup is alright now. We can go Cathar's Crusade. If we're going to go Martial Coup, do we want to play Esper Sentinel into it? Our commander's going to cost 6 mana now. I think we do just take the turn off to get down the Cathar's Crusade. And I think I'll also get down the Esper Sentinel into it, even if it does get blown up next turn. Swords to Plowshares isn't the worst, because it's hopefully likely that we'll be able to get some card draw with Esper Sentinel, especially with it having 2 power. And now that we've just lost the Monarchy, we are certainly eager to get more card draw going. Play out Field of the Dead, and we've got 6 lands, so any land from now on, apart from the basic plains, will trigger that. Obviously holding up the swords and pass the turn over. As to Fairy, are they going to pay the 2 for it? Looks like they are paying the 2. Does anyone have anything left for getting rid of another Planeswalker is the question. Tapping down the Esper Sentinel as an artifact And the defender as a creature. Tap down our land as well, because he's worried about a swords or a tutor or something. Unfortunately, decided to get rid of Rising of the Day previously, because Martial Coup with haste and a Cathar's Crusade in play would have been good. The elephant turns into the right against Torbran, and taking the monarchy away. Turns out our opponent does have something with this mana at the end step. It's a Warping Whale. Creating an Eldrazi Scion cannot afford the tax, so we get into a Snow Plains, not a basic Plains but a Snow one, so we are going to trigger the field next turn. And now seeing one of the first big Eldrazi, Ulamog's Crusher. 8/8 attacks each combat available and does have Annihilator. Now we do have Swords to Plowshares. I was wanting to wrap up a commander or two with the Martial Coup, but we could always point swords at Satya. This swings in for the monarchy, ignoring the Teferi, so draws up to 4 cards at the end of the turn. Dwarven Mine entering the battlefield and making another token, so this is an interesting variant of the Torbran. Act of Treason steals away the Ulamog. I bet that comes in towards us, allows us to draw into a Ganjo. So if we have to sacrifice the Esper Sentinel, then what is it, Annihilator 2? Yeah, the Esper Sentinel and the Mana Crypt does encourage us to just going for the Martial Coup, although will we have enough mana at that point? Needs to be 7 in total. Yep, the Eldrazi comes in at us. So Den of the Bugbear being animated again, making use of that man land. So let's sacrifice Esper Sentinel and a basic Plains. Then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. Oh, actually, am I miscounting? Yeah, it has to be 7 mana in total. Oh no, we will have enough. So yeah, get rid of the Mana Crypt. Problem is board wipes for creatures are playing into the hands of Planeswalkers, but hopefully we'll be able to go wide. Although it appears as though our opponent is attacking Teferi. Not quite dealing with that because he wants to take the Monarch. So we end up down at 19. Teferi goes down to 1. And our opponent draws at the end step. So let's see what we can do here. Smothering Tithe. Bit too late, but after a board wipe we might have time to play it. Smothering Tithe, hold up swords won't be the worst. So do get to trigger Field of the Dead after I recounted the mana. Comes in, triggers the Cathar's Crusade for a plus counter, but that's going to get wrapped up in the wipe here anyway, unfortunately. Zombies not long for this world. Still shy on red permanents though, so we're going to have to wait a bit longer on getting the Ajani back out, I suppose. But we get to wipe the board and get these 5 tokens into play, each with 5 plus counters on them. But unfortunately no haste, we'll just have to hope that the 6/6 creatures survive. River's Rebuke. So board wipes galore in this game. Bounces all our tokens and the Cathar's Crusade. Might be that our opponent was going to go for that anyway, but perhaps it would have been against Torbran. Still buys us time with the Smothering Tide next turn. Teferi deciding to untap some mana, so might have a counterspell held up. Sire of Stagnation, that's a good one to refill the hand, luckily. Still a bit shy on mana for the Eldrazi player. Although if we can keep the Sire of Stagnation in play for any length of time, that is card draw, and is particularly good with Smothering Tithe. So we'll make sure to play Smothering Tithe and then a land afterwards. Anyway, a couple of cards exiled here. They get rid of Nykthos, unfortunately, and a Malevolent Whispers. Command Beacon being cracked in order to put Torbran into hand. 4 cards in hand for this player still. So a 4 mana Torbran into a Relic Robber. So when it deals combat damage to a player, that player creates some colourless Goblin constructs, and they deal the damage to you at the beginning of your upkeep, followed by a Grape Shot. So the storm count on that, they get a couple of copies. Managed to get rid of the Sire anyway. And then the 2/2 turns in at the Planeswalker to finish that off. Great back and forth this one. Alright, an Arid Mesa. Really want the Smothering Tithe down, but are we going to have to rely on Field of the Dead? And if we're going Field of the Dead, is it Cathar's Crusade? I think it might have to be. So getting through any potential counter magic from the Jeskai player, we'll play the fetch. We can play a tap land in with that if we don't want the extra white mana. And it's a couple of zombies into play once we crack the Arid Mesa. But yeah, another turn without the Smothering Tithe. If the Sire of Stagnation had stuck around, like I said, then we could have had a couple of treasure. And likely could have gone for, yes, we could have had the Cathar's Crusade still in play and hold up Swords to Plowshares. We would have been pretty much empty-handed, but would have had 2 pieces of interaction held up. So we've been well and truly slowed down here, but like I said in the early game, we got to show off what we want to do with the deck. We just don't want to be interfered with that much, but plenty of board wipes this game. Aerial Extortionist. When it enters the battlefield or deals combat damage to a player, exile a non-land permanent, and the owner may cast it for as long as it's exiled. Exiles the Torbrand with that, which saves our Swords to Plowshares. Sending Torbrand back into the command zone, so not leaving it in exile. Assuming that this stays in play, yeah, I'm not sure how that works. If this leaves play, does Torbrand get stuck in exile? Just thinking of them cheating the command attacks. I don't think this needs to stay in play in order for them to replay the Torbrand from exile. Spawnbed Protector is going to fish Eldrazi from the graveyard, and Kozilek's Return is exile it from the graveyard, 5 damage to each creature. So they do go for that, wiping the board yet again. Forgot all about Kozilek's Return, it's probably worth an include in my Ulalek deck. Plus counter goes on to the creature from the Ruins of Aurum Reef, grabbing back the Sire of Stagnation. The longer the game goes, the longer we're playing into the hands of the Eldrazi player. A couple of spawn tokens being made by that. Gutter Snipe isn't one that we want to see. Only 1 card in hand at least. If that Den of the Bugbear swings in towards us, then might have to go for Swords to Plowshares onto that. But they go through to combat. Alright, so drawing a card at the beginning of the next end step. They're keeping hold of the Monarch for quite a while. We'll crack the Arid Mesa, go for a tapped Shockland I don't think we've seen yet. Although we've got Sacred Peaks, so yeah, we can shock down the Sacred Foundry later if we're desperate, so we'll grab the tap land, triggering at Field of the Dead and the Cathar's Crusade again. Might have to use Swords to Plowshares to save ourselves some life. Alright, Krenko, Tin Street Kingpin, better with haste in play, but we've already given up on that. And it is a red permanent as well, so get down the Smothering Tithe, we can play Krenko and still hold up the Swords to Plowshares, and probably the Aegonjo as well. Although how useful is Aegonjo? Let's play it as a land. We can further buff the Krenko so that we can more easily swing in with it and make more tokens. Down to 1 card in hand, but like I said, we might have to use that on the zombie token. Yeah, let's swing in to the right with that. Can hopefully chump block with the zombie token on the Eldrazi there. If we make enough tokens with the Smothering Tithe, we'll be able to make easy work of Annihilator. Alright, a Cavalier of Dawn you would think would go after the Eldrazi here, hoping that our Cathar's Crusade gets left alone because Krenko triggers with attacks. So if it makes a bunch of Goblin tokens, then it's going to get bigger and bigger to the Cathar's Crusade and become more and more of a threat. If we can at least get some tokens, then our commander's going to be better, but yeah, goes after the Cathar's Crusade. So we end up with a Golem token, which is another chump blocker at least. Forsaken Monument, he's already tapped some colourless lands into that, curiously. So he must want his coloured mana. Yeah, wanted the coloured mana for Sire of Stagnation. So we're going to get plenty of treasure tokens whenever people play lands into that thing. 2 treasure tokens from the Mines of Moria. And then the 9/11 swings in at us. We're just going to have to chump block this. And is colourless going to be relevant? Is anyone going to get protection from colours? Throw a zombie away. Noteworthy that if I'd held up the high market previously, I could have blocked and gained a life. Although, hopefully, a single life isn't going to be of much relevance. And this time fishing out the Snapping Void Craw. Torbrand back into play again. And that is a Cosmotronic Wave. 1 damage to each creature your opponents control, which means it's 3 damage to each creature. This will be 4 for... We have to use Swords to Plowshares here, unfortunately. Much as I'd love to use it on one of the problem Eldrazi. Can't be taking 8 damage at such a low life total. Nor do we want to lose any creatures. Now, creatures can't block this turn. It does mean they can swing in with this, but... I mean, do they really want to do that? A Chain Lightning, finishing off the Krenko, unfortunately. Our opponents are very eager to get rid of us. I mean, I was hoping to try and set up a board wipe with our commander, but yeah, Not a whole lot we're going to do, I don't think. Do we want to carry on with the Chain Lightning? 3 damage onto what? Could put it onto the Gutter Snipe so it doesn't kill us. Yeah, do that. Don't think I've ever bounced back a Chain Lightning before. So bounce that back to the Gutter Snipe. And we end up at 6 life before we start our turn again. So it's going to have to be a hell of a top deck. A land played into the Site of Stagnation offers more card draw, and therefore more Smothering Tithe mana. Okay, so down to potentially the final draw step. In fact, almost certainly the final draw step. An Arcane Signet. Our land would have been better than that. So we're just playing our commander and hoping that someone goes for a board wipe. It's not likely though. So we'll show our opponents that we don't have anything. Don't think they're going to play around the one card that's in our hand anyway. Just throw down the Arcane Signet. Yeah, and like I said, the aim was to plus here and then go for the -4 next turn. Each opponent chooses an artifact, enchantment, planeswalker from amongst them and sacks the rest. We could still set it up and maybe our opponents will help us have the Ajani survive. So we'll sack the Cat Warrior. Can't deal damage without a red permanent in play anyway. Gain a life, go for the plus. I wonder if it's worth having some kind of proliferate in the deck. I'd have to have a look at that. I did throw this together as Cat Tribal, and from my playtesting it's pretty terrible, but as a token generating build I think it's actually a pretty good deck. It's just been very, very interactive, this one. And we're playing into the hands of the Eldrazi, unfortunately. But once again, haven't seen much from Ulalek, even in this lower powered game. Made it to turn 10, and I think Ulalek has only hit play once. Although could see it next turn with Forsaken Monument on the battlefield. The 4/6 goes to the right against the Burn player to take the Monarch away and try and draw into an answer. You have to assume with 7 mana that he's aiming for a Cyclonic Rift. Problem is, he probably allows the Eldrazi player to take us out and then goes for the Rift. Or maybe he's not aiming for that, just took the Monarchy and now he's going for something else. We can only hope for a board wipe. Flood of Tears. Alright, that buys us a turn. Could always still go down to the Burn player though. So now drawing a card at the end of the turn to the Monarch. Forsaken Monument back into play, and again tapping down his colourless permanents in order to do that. So does he go for the... Alright, it's Talisman of Resistance is pretty much free as long as you pay colourless mana for it. He does have the black and green thing that taps for 2 colourless as well. Oh no, it was green and blue, not green and black, but the Snapping Void Craw is the one that they were going for. Alright, so time to see if we go down against the Manland here, or some Burn or whatever. 4 cards in hand for Torbran. A Sol Ring. Fiery Inscription. So it's noteworthy that he's got level 2 on the ring at the moment, but he hasn't played a creature, so... Yeah, could have animated the Den of the Bugbear and made it the Ring Bearer. And still coming in at us with the Den of the Bugbear. Just trying to knock players out at this point, I imagine. But does he feel as though we can get rid of the other 2 players? Or does he need our help? Again, the token, making use of getting rid of the Monarch from our opponent and taking it for himself. Alright, we get another top deck. Not expecting anything great though. Skull Clamp. Well, we've got Ajani available to us, so might as well use it here. I don't think the extra life from High Market is going to matter. Famous last words, you can quote me on that. So I'll tap that down just in case the colours do matter. Skull Clamp onto the 2/1 creature. We said right at the beginning of the game that it is Skull Clampable. And there we are. So draw 2 to the Clamp. And there is a Legion War Boss which can make another Goblin token for us. We've got Landfall that we can make with the Flooded Strand for more tokens. Yeah, maybe we do just go Legion War Boss here. Obviously it's a red permanent as well to make our Ajani more relevant. Go through to combat, and I'm going to be nice to Terrax here. The Torbran player's been going after us all game, so I'll start focusing on him. Managed to take the Monarchy as well, completely forgot about that. Doubt it's going to be of any relevance, we've got plenty of card draw available to us now already. So then we'll play Flooded Strand, make a zombie token, make another zombie token with the Flooded Strand going down to 3 life, because we like to live life on the edge, and I'll get in an untapped land so the Sacred Foundry can stay in there. Then it's a case of 0 on the Ajani, And this is what I was thinking with, I suppose it's better for 1v1 this commander, although will we get time to, because then we can just more easily point damage straight at our opponent. I didn't think we'd get much time to deal damage directly to our opponents. I thought we'd have to use it as like more of a control ability. We'll get rid of the Void Craw so that they've got less mana. They fished that out for a reason previously. Alright, now we've maximised the creatures, we can go Skull Clamp, draw 2 cards. Alright, and there's the haste that we were after previously. 1 mana shy on the Jeska's Will, unfortunately. So it's going to have to be the Arcane Signet. And if we're lucky with those blockers, we might be able to survive another turn here. I'll put the Skull Clamp onto the Legion War Boss, because that's the one that's most likely to die. Although there's an argument to be made for putting it onto a zombie so that we can more easily chump block. Yeah, we'll put it onto the Legion War Boss, because I think the red player is going to point removal at it. Fervor's a much more permanent red permanent, so not too worried about keeping red permanents in play. Although we're not too worried about winning the game at this point. Just a case of treading water, seeing how long we can last. It's a shame we can't put lifelink on this Ajani. Do draw a card to the Monarchy as well, after we finally get it back. And there is our friend at the Shockland, which probably comes into play tap next turn. Alright, that player deciding to scoop, which I don't think much of. A Talisman of Conviction for Satya. And a Thieving Skydiver probably takes the Skull Clamp and draws our opponent cards straight away. An underplayed one this, but it's very, very good. And then playing a Skull Clamp of his own, so he can take out 2 powered creatures and draw 4 cards with that. Or 2 toughness creatures, I should say. I didn't actually think of putting this in Arna, but gaining multiple copies of the Skull Clamp, you'd have to be careful with it, but yeah, that could be quite good, being able to kill off any creature and draw a whole heap of cards. It'd take some setting up, but that's worth considering. The Dreamstone Hedron continuing to just generate more and more mana. I think we've bought Ulalek all the time in the world in order to actually do something here. A Chittering Dispatcher, gaining some more life. Leaves with an Eldrazi spawn, and it does have Myriad as well. No haste, thankfully. Ulalek hitting play again. So, might have to use damage on Ajani to deal with that. Alright, well, amazingly we've made it to turn 12 at only 3 life. Luckily don't have the Mana Crypt in play anymore. And that is a rally at the Hornburg, so... how much damage can we deal here? I think the first thing to do is go for Jeska's Will. Point that at the Eldrazi player, because it's not as likely that he'll lose cards from his hand in response to this. And that therefore means that we get more mana. Alright, doesn't look as though we've got anything decent there. Loyal Apprentice, another red permanent, make more tokens. Yeah, Myriad Landscape makes us more zombies, so it's probably the land to go for. So let's get down the Loyal Apprentice. Maybe we have to take care of Terrax here. And then if we give Ulalek a turn, then so be it. Play Rally at the Hornburg. Going to give our humans haste when it enters. So we've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 onto the Satya player. And we've got Mentor as well. But then that frees us up for getting taken out potentially by the Eldrazi player. But we can go for 0 onto Ajani and deal with Ulalek, which is 7 toughness. Yeah, I think we have to do that. And it might be that if we can drag the game out long enough, by some miracle, we can keep Ulalek under control long enough to actually start pointing damage at his face. Crazy if we won this game. Not holding out hope though. So successfully get rid of Ulalek, play the Smothering Tithe. We'll play the Myriad Landscape as well. We could give our zombies haste with the Fervor now, but we want to be holding back blockers. But I'll just play the Fervor now anyway, just so that I don't have to think about it too much before we go to combat. Alright, so all of our creatures now have haste. Legion Warboss makes a token, the Loyal Apprentice makes a token. And for some reason I don't have Perforos and cards like that in the deck. I think I should do. First time playing the deck, so I'm just getting a feel for it for the first time, but yeah, I think I probably should have cards like that in here. Alright, so probably best to leave a flying blocker in the way, just in case there's a flying hasty Eldrazi. Can't think of one, but you never know. So it'll be 3, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 in at this player, and hopefully that's enough to take him out even with removal. So I'll just pull back some chump blockers. I have to swing in with the goblin, I forgot about that. So plus counter onto there, and we'll see if we can get rid of Terrax and see if he's got a lightning bolt here. He did tap for red mana there. Alright, Swords to Plowshares is removal, gains us a bit of life, but we did account for getting some creatures removed here. So we've still got 14 damage on him. Be interesting to see if the Swords to Plowshares life gain there is relevant. Maybe we could use it to shock down Sacred Foundry, although I can't see us being desperate for mana. So taking him down to -1, and are we going to pull it back from the brink? The Eldrazi player still has double mana available. Do draw a card at the end of the turn. Is this going to be of any relevance? No, it is a mountain. It's good to clear it off the top of the library though. Do manage to get back our Skull Clamp as well. So survive another turn. 7 cards in our opponent's hand and plenty of mana. But even if they get down a Titan, we might be able to go wide. We've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It'll be 11 creatures if we keep the Goblin Lord. So, oh, and then another one when we actually activate the Ajani. Anyway, Hedron Archive might be cracked for a board wipe, in an attempt to get into a board wipe, I mean. A lot of basics in our opponent's deck here, or more basics than I would run. The only basics in my Ululek deck are wastes, because of things like Forsaken Monument, and then I fix the colours with the World Tree and Chromatic Lantern and stuff. Got all the Pain lands. But there is an Artisan of Kozilek going to bring back out the Spawn Bed Protector, which will make some chump blockers. Continuing to gain life. Rishkar's Expertise. I mean, we're going to attempt to somehow close out the game next turn, so yeah, they get a free spell is the problem. Smothering Tithe will help us get there though. Our opponent's got 16 cards in hand and he's really thinking hard about which spell to get out for free. And that was the one I was thinking of, Selective Obliteration. So did manage to draw into the board wipe. Each player chooses a colour, exile each permanent unless a colour of the permanent is chosen. So I think we have to go for red here because we'll get to keep... yeah, they can get us on... Yeah, that's annoying. They can get us with this is the problem. Or actually they can't, can they? So we're going to get a bunch of Smothering Tithe tokens. If we say red, we've got more white permanents that we can Skull Clamp and hopefully get into a red permanent to keep this thing relevant. Because it won't be if we select white. We get to keep our commander, and Smothering Tithe won't be as relevant if we don't win next turn, I don't think. I think we have to say white here. So let's go for sacrificing a zombie token to gain a life. Oh, it's noteworthy the wording on this, it's only the colour its opponent chose, so it gets rid of multicoloured as well, so we will lose the Ajani no matter what colour we choose. I think we still go for white here though. So yeah, I think we have to choose white here after getting all the treasure tokens. And our commander goes down, we get to keep the colourless stuff and the white stuff. Our commander goes back to the command zone again. Alright, Everflowing Chalice kicked twice. 13 cards in hand still. If our opponent does decide to swing in here, I think I'd be tempted to go for allowing it in to maximise the number of creatures we've got. There's a Glaring Flesh Raker, so that's going to make more spawn tokens. So it's noteworthy that we've got through to turn 12 and Ululek has still been irrelevant, even though our opponents had bags of time to make mana and play it out and make copies and stuff. So yeah, the 4-5 swings in at us. No opponents to worry about Myriad with. I think we try and break our record of the lowest life total we've had this game. Take it from 3 down to 2. Our opponent does take the Monarchy, but I don't think it's of any relevance here. Probably die next turn if we don't manage to do something against our opponent. Gets to draw a card and fish out another Eldrazi at the end of the turn. So grabs himself the Void Craw again. Completely... Oh, that's so irritating. That was a stupid mistake. 1 damage to each opponent when a colourless creature enters. Did not know it did that. So we had to block. I don't think we would have done anything to our opponent anyway, but it should have been a better game than that. I'm praying that we can draw cards here and at least see if we could have done anything. Yeah, our opponent gets us. It was actually looking like we might have been able to do something there. Ugh, farewell. I mean, there's no guarantee that we could have wiped the board, but our opponent still has a full grip and plenty of mana. I mean, yeah, we're not doing too much of anything other than just wiping the board there, and I've now been kicked out into the lobby. Hello all, Editor Kai here. Apologies for the mistake there. I know that that just enrages some people, but I thought that that was a good enough game to upload anyway. I think it was a fun one, and it showcases Ajani, which I'm sure only a handful of people are interested in anyway, but like I said, fun to see some of the plays that were made here. It was a nice interactive one, which I know a lot of you like. Just looking at the board state here, I think Ajani was 8 mana, so it was probably a case of swinging with at least the Thopter token. We had the small red enchantment there, which can buff attackers, so maybe we put a bit of mana into there. Say we get down our commander before those attacks, that is 8 mana, and then 2 into the enchantment, leaves us with 4 treasure tokens. Maybe we activate the enchantment for 2 mana, leaving us with 2 treasure. Deal a little bit of damage with the Thopter. Then we'll have a red permanent in play. We can activate Ajani to make a cat token. And that'll have us with 6 tokens in play. Maybe deal damage directly to our opponent with that as well, because we're looking to go for a farewell here. So then we are equipping Skull Clamp a few times, so do it twice with 2 of the remaining treasure, and then I think that'll leave us with 6 mana, although we would have got to play a land, so 7 mana after the farewell. Obviously the mana's accounted for there, so 3 more mana leaves us with 4, and we would have drawn into most of this there, I think. So with our creatures down to Skull Clamp, we cast the farewell, getting rid of all their creatures. Maybe artifacts as well to really hurt them. It hurts us as well, but we've got the Smothering Tithe at least. Certainly exile the graveyard as well, at which point we've got 4 mana held up, so could risk going for the One Ring in order to protect us for a turn. I think maybe getting down Mondrak would be a better idea, because then we can get double tokens and try and rebuild our board again. I think I said during the video there that I don't have Perforos or anything like that in the deck. I've now added those to the deck list because I think we make enough tokens to justify cards like that, and that will make us much more potent in this deck. I think it was a lot more resilient than I thought it was going to be, this one. But yeah, after that, it's just trying to get a bunch of tokens back out into play and continue to tread water, like I said. Problem is our opponent has just crafted a really good 7-card hand, so who knows what kind of titans he's got available to him and whether we'll be able to combat against those, especially after a board wipe and big Annihilator creatures coming into play. Maybe something like Ulamog the Defiler comes down and just annihilates our entire board. So I'm not entirely hopeful that we ever would have won that one, but if we could have tread water for long enough, like I said, get down Ajani, burn our opponent out over the course of many a turn, and chump block with as many tokens as we can to just buy ourselves that amount of time, yeah, maybe we could have done something, but I'm not hopeful. Hurting our opponent's mana might have got us there as well. Yeah, apologies, we'll never know now. I usually hang my head in shame and don't upload these videos, but I think it was an interesting enough one that it is worth watching, and you'll have had a warning at the beginning of this video anyway for any of you that are upset by mistakes like that. Anyway, hopefully you did enjoy it. We're back into spoiler season with the new set now, so not even sure when that's out. It'll probably be out in the next few months, I imagine. Anyhow, big thank you to the patrons as ever. I'm Tribal Kai. Thank you for watching.